We are recording this also will go up on our website.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to participate. As introduced, my name is Michael Hooker. I'm the Director of Research here at Key Research. So this is the executive summary presentation of the recently completed resident survey for 2026. So the format of this presentation, so I'll touch on the research objectives and then I'll go on to talk about the research methodology that we employed before we move on to have a look at some of those insights themselves. And so we'll look at how some of those key metrics are performing. We'll look at what is sitting under those, what is driving them. We have some reputation metrics to analyse as well. As aforementioned, we do have some benchmarking data to show you before we move on to the conclusion itself. So the survey sets out to determine how satisfied residents are with all of the services and facilities which are provided by the council. Importantly, we want to be able to track how each of these measures are performing over time. We need to evaluate communication and engagement with residents. And importantly, through the methodology and through the analytical model that we've put into play, we're able to identify where the priority areas are for improvements. So as mentioned earlier as well, this is the third year that we have provided annual resident survey services to Masterton District Council. So we followed the same method each time. And it's a best practice approach that we put into play here. So we're using the electoral roll to determine our sample frame. And this is the best sample frame that we can sort of get our hands on with regards to residents aged 18 plus across the district. So what we do is that we post a letter to residents and we invite them to participate in the survey by way of a link that they can copy into their browser or by way of a QR code. And you'll see there that we get a reasonable response rate. We've ended up with an analytical sample of 403 responses. We're very good at making sure that through our invites we get a very robust representation of the district's population, but sometimes it's not perfect. So a little bit of weighting of the data comes into play to make sure that it is a perfect reflection of the demographic profile of respondents across the district on the basis of the 2023 census. And you'll see there that fieldwork was completed across February and March this year. Okay, so let's move on now to look at the results themselves. And so these are the key metrics, the cornerstone metrics, if you like. We're measuring at the highest level here. And we see that it's a pretty good result in general. So the overall satisfaction measure has remained very stable in comparison to where it was in 2023. And part of the good news story that we are presenting this afternoon is that the value for money metric has improved. But we do see, unfortunately, a bit of a decline there in the overall reputation metric. And it's a small decline as well in perceptions of overall services and facilities. We do see, however, each one of the metrics is somewhat lower the much more favourable scores which were reported in 2020. So we measured 53 attributes in total. So 22 of those attributes had recorded some level of improvement and 28 had recorded some level of decline or decrease in perceptions. These are the attributes here which recorded the highest levels of satisfaction, and we see a number related to waste management and a number related to services provided around parks, reserves and green spaces and open spaces as well. Conversely, if we look at those
benchmarks, they come later.
Yes, there is benchmarking data coming in slides further on in the presentation. So these are the attributes which recorded the highest level of dissatisfaction. And you'll see here something to do with consultation and something to do with reputation as well. And we see these factors as being intertwined, and we got a lot of feedback across the survey to do with the opportunity for residents to have their say around decision making of what would happen with the town hall, and then some dissatisfaction with decisions which were then made around the town hall. So it's something to bear in mind as we go forward and look at some of the other key results which we've got in the presentation as well. So which attributes show the greatest level of improvements between 23 and 2026? So we've got some really good results coming through here. And in particular, we see really strong improvements around perceptions of the roading infrastructure and the roading network. And we see some really strong improvements as well around some other core services provided by the council. Conversely, the biggest decreases, we see a number here around the perceptions of reputation of the council, and also some declines in terms of the promotion of the district in terms of living, working, and visiting. And we'll also see some decline here in terms of the temporary relocation of the district library as well. These are the key metrics that we are measuring over time related to services and infrastructure. We see these mainly remaining stable, but it's the two at the bottom of the chart here that I would like to draw your attention to. So we see that really nice uplift in the roading infrastructure metric off the back of the damage done to the network following the significant storms early in 2023. So that's nice to see that perception rising there. The concern would be around the perceptions of trust, which have continued and accelerated the decline from 2023. This is the unique offering that we bring to the table for all of the local government annual resident survey, which we conduct across New Zealand. So we're doing the annual resident survey for 24 other councils. And we developed this analytical model off the back of a challenge which was set down to us by a client who said, the results which you have presented are well and good, but how do we work out where the priority should be for us going forward? And so we knew from our decades of experience in working in local government that a resident found it very difficult to separate out their perceptions of the performance of the council solely on the basis of core service delivery. They needed to also account for issues of reputation and image, and also their perceptions of value for money for the rates that they pay. And all of these cornerstone elements were having an impact upon their perception of the overall performance of the council. So we had to bring in these extra elements, if you like, into our analytical model. And what sits in behind this model is a statistical analysis which determines the impact that each of these cornerstone attributes are having on overall performance. And you can see here that value for money right now has by far the largest influence or impact upon a resident's perception of overall performance of the council. Reputation is sitting at 20% in core services and facilities at 11%. So the purpose of the model is to point out where your overall performance is being driven from at this point in time. And I reference back to a slide that I showed at the top of the presentation, which showed a really nice uplift in perceptions of value for money, but a decline, quite a decline, a greater decline in terms of the reputation perceptions. And so because the value for money impact is so high, it's allowed that overall performance measure to remain relatively stable. If perceptions of value for money, for example, were lower, much lower than they have been, then you were highly likely to have seen your overall performance metric decline as well. If we look at that particular model, how it may have shifted since 2023, it's remained relatively stable, which is good. So we see actually a slight increase in terms of the influence of value for money in 2026. Reputation slightly declined in terms of influence, and services and facilities are relatively the same. What we do see that is different, however, is that the driver of reputation has switched in 2026 to that of financial management. So it's worthwhile bearing in mind that what happens across the council and decisions that are made around that can have a significant influence upon a resident's perception of the overall council performance. We're able to measure differences across a number of demographic and geographic variables. These are questions that we ask in the questionnaire. So we have length of time living in the district, we have urban and rural dwellers, we have ratepayers being non-ratepayers, we have ethnicity, specifically Māori being non-Māori, gender and age. And so we analysed each of those particular variables to see if there are any differences which stood out. And the only differences, statistically significant ones, were those in reference to age. And it's something to be particularly cognizant of. And we see here that those who are in the younger age groups are much more likely to be dissatisfied than those in older age groups, and often by quite some way. And so we see some significant differences in levels of perception between those in the younger ages and those in the older ages. And of those 53 variables, those aged 18 to 34 had the lowest levels of satisfaction on 40 of the attributes, and often by quite some way. And then the inverse was true for those aged 65 plus. On 38 of the 53 attributes, they recorded the highest levels of satisfaction, and again, often by quite some way. And we have a question in the questionnaire, which allows our residents to provide us with the verbatim or comments. So this is the general comment section. And you'll see a number here specifically related, again, to image and reputational concerns and also perceptions of value for money as well. So I'll touch on the reputation profile now. So this is another unique offering that we brought into the local government sector. And this is off the back of 4 questions that we ask in the image and reputation section in the questionnaire. And this is just a snapshot of where the community sits at this particular point in time. So we build this profile of 2 questions, which we refer to as our soft measures, which are those of trust and leadership. And then we have 2 hard measures, which are reported across the x-axis there as the financial management and perceptions of core service delivery. And so the profile here is essentially a calculation across every respondent across those 4 attributes. And we notice here that skeptics have grown since 2023 by 3 percentage points. Champions have declined by 5 percentage points. We're not showing the 2020 numbers here, but you can imagine the 2020 numbers, we're presenting a much more favourable picture than what we've seen at this point in time. So the goal is to shift the skeptics from that red quadrant there, preferably into the champions quadrant, and on the basis of that, you're much more likely to have a much more stronger overall performance as a result. So we measured the performance of our future our story plan as well, and we asked residents if they were aware of the plan. Just over a fifth of respondents were aware of it. And they had become aware of it mainly through social media in the Wairarapa Times Age. And of that 21%, 23% had provided feedback, typically via the online survey. Okay, so the benchmarking slides. So 2 slides here. The Masterton District Council has purchased the 2026 benchmarking report. So most other councils that we're working with are finishing up their field work for the year at this point in time. So the 2026 report will be with you in about September this year. And what we've done here is that we have retrofitted your scores in 2026 with a 25 benchmarking report, just for illustration purposes, just for this presentation, to give you a feel for where you sit. And given the question that I'm had, I'm glad that we did this. So that we have the green line here, which is representing the best in class across the 24 councils that we're measuring here. The orange line is worst in class. The silver line is the sector average, and the blue line here is where Masterton District Council is sitting. So you'll see pretty good results. So you are at or above sector average on most, and in fact well above the sector average for perceptions of value for money. So these are the cornerstone attributes which I'm displaying on this particular slide here. And then in terms of core services, as I've already alluded to, a really good result for Masterton in terms of perceptions of overall waste management, ahead of the sector average there, slightly lower in terms of water management, but otherwise pretty close to the sector averages. And then finally, just concluding statements here. So we saw that the overall performance metric has remained stable. So that is a good news story. Part of the good news story is driven from the fact that value for money perceptions have improved. It is also the strongest driver of overall performance. And as I alluded to, the fact that it was perceived to be so strong held that overall performance level where it was. We saw really good improvements in numerous core services, and particularly in perceptions of the roading and roading infrastructure. And we wanted to make this point here that perceptions of the performance of mayor and councillors has a significant influence on overall image and reputation. It's really important to be cognizant of that. And in this particular instance, or this point in time, it appears as though trust is having a significant influence on residents' perceptions of image and reputation. So this is a summary presentations. I'm more than happy to take any questions or discuss any points in more detail.
I have a question. I thought Brent was going to get him first. Thank you for your report. Just unless I'm completely blind, you know the benchmarking against other councils. Are they in the slides that we've got? I don't feel like I saw them. No. We said
one.
October.
Yeah, I'd like. Yeah, those. We don't have a copy of those ones, but anyway, that's fine. We don't have them. You get that, Ben? Can you have that for us, Matt?
Yep.
Just in regards to the Our Place, Our Future, Our Story, sorry, 13% reported back as other for how they found the information. That's the 4th highest score. I'd love to just get an idea of what some of those other things were. Did they?
Yes. Yep.
Did they stipulate how they found out?
I don't have that information at my fingertips, but it will be in the report and available to us, and I can report back to you on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. There might just be some gems there that we're missing of avenues.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Councillor Nelson.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Michael.
Yes.
With the value for money, what specifically does that refer to? Is it all services, like were there some things that are value for money and other things that aren't? Or is it just one?
So it's a general question which references value for money in respect of rates and fees that residents pay.
Okay. And just
Yes.
another question, with the roading, which was a positive, was that it had been declining, or it had been tracking downwards, but it's gone up around the beginning of this year. Is that right? Did I see that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Maybe-
I'll just go back to that one. It's an interesting one. Yes.
Because when,
Sorry, Ryan.
so 2023, it was low and then it's gone up since about 2024 to 2026.
Yep. Yep.
So that's a long-term increase for the last 3 years. I was thinking it might have been because of one thing, like the storms and the way the roads were addressed, but that seems to be an upwards tracking for the last 3 years
Only
generally.
3 data points.
Yeah.
There's only
Yeah,
three.
three data points. That's yep.
Oh, okay, yep.
Mm.
Oh, so the 2026 one could be because of one particular thing, which was the way the storms were addressed.
Well, the
Yeah.
storms in 23
Yeah.
were significant. People knew the roads were damaged after that storm. The survey was in March. The storms were in February.
Yeah,
So
in
the
2023.
the low in 23
Yeah.
could be related to the storm damage.
Yeah.
And then we've fixed it.
And in 2026 could be related to the damage at the beginning of this year and the way it was rectified.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Anyone else with a question?
I just have a
Councillor
observation. I was selected to participate. Obviously, I couldn't, but it was nice to, because I think that's the same as you. Okay, and we're Stella and I were.
David Harris.
Really?
Sorry, John.
Posted the.
Okay,
I wanted to.
So,
Wanted to.
yeah, we had said that. So it was nice, to see that
The system's
the
working.
process working.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, thank you for that. We put a lot of effort into ensuring that our processes are robust, and we conduct the survey to the best practice and highest level possible. So, yeah, and I'm not surprised that you have been invited. We would expect, given the number of invites that we send, that people will at some stage notice that they have received a letter in the post.
sorry. And just so the total number of invitations was about 4,000. Was my math correct?
403.
403 is the number of response, and that's 10%.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So, okay, that's pretty good. And sorry, I have one unrelated question. What is a good sample size, do you reckon, for feedback? Like,
But most of our clients are targeting about 400 to 600. We have a couple of clients who would be doing more than that. But as you'll see, the results are robust at about that 400, n equals 400 level. We could get away with less if we really needed to. But the reason why we like to keep it at about that level is so that when we go to do our disaggregated analysis across some of those demographic and geographic variables, we've still got enough of a sample to be confident about the results which is providing to us.
you can have one more. In bigger centres, is it still 400, or is that 400 for a centre our size, or?
No. So we've our own Tauranga City Council, for example, is n equals 400. So some will be shifting up to about 600, but you're not getting better value for money necessarily.
Okay, great.
Councillor Jackson, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I was really interested if I've interpreted well the satisfaction level between our under 54-year-olds. How does that compare with other councils, and what percentage of those participated in the survey were from that age group?
So it's really good question, and this is something that we have been checking and raising. We have seen it. This is a pattern which is fairly similar across a number of our council clients across the country. Older residents a lot less unhappy, if you like, much happier with things. Younger residents being much more dissatisfied. So that pattern is similar. We had unweighted responses that were more than sufficient to then weight. So we ended up with exactly the profile that we should have had once we had weighted the data. So we had got enough to be able to weight in those younger age groups.
It's interesting to note that the younger age group is more dissatisfied, but the younger age group tends not to vote. And yet the older age group is satisfied and they're our voters.
Yeah. Yeah.
I reckon there's a correlation there.
Well, they're also our submitters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're not exactly talking, the majority of people voting about it
Younger, you mean?
of any
Oh, yeah, anyway.
percentage. I mean,
Tim,
Michael, what would you expect to be like a next step? So we've got this data, it's really comprehensive. We've asked a lot of people in our community. We have trouble with consultation numbers, but
Yep.
here we've got a really broad consultation, so much information covered, so many things to work on. What would be a typical or an effective next step from your perspective?
And so I've touched on the driver model here. And then I've touched on some of the attributes contributing to those cornerstone drivers. They are the ones that, if your goal was to improve residents' perceptions of the performance of the council, those are the sorts of things that you would then focus on. And so I pointed out issues around image and reputation, for example, and abilities of residents to be involved in consultation exercises. We generally feel core services are well thought of and are delivered well. Generally, it's things around image and reputation and perceptions of value for money, which really end up driving a resident's overall perception of the performance of the council. So those are the kind of things that you would be focusing on.
Any other questions, for Michael?
so is it October we get the proper benchmarking stuff?
Yeah, so I would say September is generally when the reports are put together. We'd say you'd probably could be fairly confident that there wouldn't be too much change from the slides that I've shown you here. We'll just go back to them down here. I mean, this is Masterton benchmarked against the sector, or as of September 2025. There shouldn't really be too much variation in that.
Can you? I find it a bit frustrating in that we use this for our June decision making on annual plan and next year's LTP, but it would be great if we could get the benchmarking and quicker.
Yeah.
But this is us. So we don't have to worry about the others. We can just put our.
We're different. We put our own unique.
Well, we need to.
Yeah, I guess we just have to get 24 councils completed and reported and reports finalised and finalised internally from our clients before we can compile the information. Unfortunately, we just have to run through that cycle.
All right. I think that's us. Michael, if you could send me those slides from today, and I will provide those to the elected members, that would be great.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think that's us. So thanks so much for presenting, Michael.
No,
thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you. Bye-bye.